Yes, I am, madam. I'm ready for you, madam.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much to everyone. We are streaming live now, and we are beginning with our usual Wednesday show, our sessions. Maybe before I get into the first item on the program, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome all of you on the platform. I will introduce you one by one once I am doing the opening. But I want to indicate to the panelists and all our followers, our viewers on different platforms that today it is on a Wednesday and it's a big day for the leadership of the show because it is Dr. Fundile Nyati's birthday. So Dr. Nyati, you have an addition of 1 year on your age, and you are aging younger indeed. So it is your birthday today.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Wow! I'm tempted to say hippie hooray! Happy birthday, Doc. We wish you many, many, many years with blessings. Happy returns in your life. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, all viewers on different platforms, today we continue with our Heritage Month special, and today we are talking about cultural and religious practice and their impact on women. As part of the Heritage Month series, this week we are focusing on the relationship between cultural norms and women. We look at how the different cultural and religious practices impact women in our society, whether positive or negative. Traditional cultural practices reflect values and beliefs held by members of a community for periods often spanning generations. Every social grouping in the world has specific cultural or religious practices and beliefs, some of which are beneficial to all members, while others are harmful to a specific group, such as women. Some of these practices span across Africa. They include female genital mutilation, early marriages, esizibiza ngoba mhlambe kukuthwala ngaphaya kwelacala endikhulele kulo mna noDoc and others. The various taboos or practices which prevent women from controlling their own fertility, traditional birth practices, the preference of son or boy children, and its implications for the status of the girl child. Closer to home, some of these practices create expectation around how even widows mourn their husbands, as for example, virginity testing on young, not for boys. In some culture, greetings require women to display a sense of submission as a sign of great respect to the men, but none is accorded to the women in the same manner. In some religions, women are not allowed to show their faces and bodies outside their husbands, but does not expect the same from the men. Given our need for gender equality, ladies and gentlemen, the equitable society cannot be attained if fundamental human rights of half of human society, which are women, continue to be compromised. Therefore, there is a need for a dialogue to take a closer look at cultural and religious practices and their relationship with women. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers should be for what it is intended. So let me put a disclaimer to say it is not a dialogue that is intended to misrepresent the importance of culture or faith in our society. But there certainly is a place for the faith sector and culture in our lives. For example, when we talk of morality or moral regeneration and spiritual renewal, as an example, Pastor Hololo, culture and faith definitely play a crucial role here. But this dialogue seeks to look at the different cultures and religions, unpack the practices, establish the link between the practices and their impact on women, and whether these practices still remain relevant or in the interest of the women. So with that said, I must say that I am excited to welcome our very important guests today to discuss this very important topic. Allow me to welcome
Madam Speaker, we've lost you.
She has just been kicked out. She has to come back again. Let's just give her a few seconds for her to connect afresh.
Sure, thanks, Doc.
In the absence of the chair of chairs, can I ask maybe Councillor Mfikwe to deputize the speaker if something like this happens again?
Doc, everyone, I'm just gonna help her quickly to connect. Just give her a few seconds. She'll use her phone.
All right, I can see her coming through.
Okay, let me help her quick.
The new normal doesn't always work the way we want it to work.
Hello.
Hi, speaker.
Hi, Doc. I have to connect with my other gadget with data. There is a problem here at the Metro Center. The connection and step out. So
the municipality didn't pay its data account.
No, I think the bandwidth of the Wi-Fi connection. So I'm connecting from my cell phone now. Apologies for that.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. Thank you very much. I was still introducing our guests. I have already welcomed Ms. Busi Khumalo, who's the chairperson of Rastafarian Faith Council in South Africa. I was welcoming Pastor Cllr Nonceba, who is the secretary of the Johannesburg Faith-Based Organization. You are most welcome, Pastor Hololo.
Sipho, we've lost the speaker again.
Oh my word. Okay. Sure. Let me make another plan.
Delighted to be joined by Miss Ati Pandey, who represents the Sivananda Ashram in Johannesburg. We are also having Riva Foreman, who represents the Israelis. So she's also our old friend. You are most welcome, Riva. Welcome to all our guests, also our viewers from different platforms. I will take it one step at a time and kick off the discussion by asking some probing questions directly to each of the guests. But if at any stage, any of the panelists wish to add something to the point being made, please do not hesitate to jump in by just putting up the hand icon. We always try our level best not to make this session very formal. So it's a session where we're all allowed to discuss, and you can chip in at some time when you want to raise a point. So without waste of time, let me start by asking a question. At a face value seems to be a simple one. Are you still with me?
So if
someone is not muted, Doc, can we mute the guests as and when they are entering the platform? I will start with the provincial chairperson, Prince Tabane from Contralesta, on the question of culture. Tatu Tabane, if nje ungake uxelele i-panelist. Yes, if ungake nje uxelele i-panelist laba abasimameleyo ukuthi what is culture? Intoni i-culture? And in answering this question, perhaps to unpack the difference between culture and tradition. If ngaqala apho Tabane, then as we go on, I will ask a second question maybe. But for now, if because some of us, we don't know the difference between culture and tradition, and we use these words interchangeable, maybe without understanding the exact meaning of each. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mdanenkosi.
Thank you, Speaker, and the participants that are there in the platform. Thanks very much for this. But I would begin, as Speaker, by saying, when we come in terms of explaining, giving the interpretation of these words, at some point they give challenge even to our understanding in terms of languages. But when I begin, I'll be specifically speaking about what does it mean in relation to my language, which is isiXhosa in this case. To us, when you talk about a tradition, you talk about something that is more of a practice that you are practicing in the area that you are residing. And then we'll call that isithethe. It's not a custom. And then if you talk about a custom, you talk about what I will call it isiko. Isiko, it differs from a tradition, but there's a thin line in between. When you talk about isiko, you talk about something that has got some kind of an imperative that you have to do this thing. If you don't do, there will be some repercussions, some kind of punishment because you did not do this. But a tradition is the way that people are used to do things at a certain community. Now, the thin line is in between that before you have isiko, you'll start with a tradition. Then, as the time goes on, that tradition becomes a custom, which means lisiko. Now, there's some kind of an imperative that you have to practice isiko, because at some point you will have some punishment if you don't practice. And yet, a culture, in the midst of what I'm saying, which in Xhosa we'll call it inkcubeko, how things you do, But at the end of the day, whatever you do, it should yield positive spin-offs, the benefits of the society, the benefits of the community. That is Inkubeko, and it identifies you. How do we do things as people who are civilized? That I would call it Inkubeko. So that is the basis of where we come from. Now, at some point in our own cultural practice, you may find someone who would make an example about a traditional initiation. When a boy goes to the mountain, would you call that lisiko? Would you call that in other words, would you call it a tradition or a custom? Because some people will go to an initiation school simply because they will be punished by the society in that a certain area if they did not go to that cultural practice. But in some people, it doesn't give them pressure to go to the initiation school because where they reside, there is no pressure from the society that will be punished by the society if you didn't practice that. So I think from the basis of what I've explained, that's how I will define the tradition, a difference between a tradition, a culture, and a custom. Which means, in other words, in Xhosa sisithethe yinkcubeko lisiko. Can you hear me, Speaker?
We can hear you, Prince.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I've just explained. May I repeat it again?
No, we've heard you. We've heard you.
Thank you.
Prince?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can I continue? Because I've already explained.
Or are you done?
Yes, unless people would want me to repeat again.
Okay, no, my apologies. My apologies. I think I had a connection breakdown. Thank you very much for explaining. Doc?
No, I was saying you can proceed to the next speaker because he clarified the issues of culture, tradition, and enlightenment or something like that.
Yes, thank you very much. I had, and the most important part that I had is that there's a thin line between the two. As much as we are using the two interchangeably, but there is a thin line. But what is important is that they both have a positive spin-off. So thank you very much for that explanation. Maybe before I go to the next speaker, I am told by the team that when I was introducing some of the members, I got cut off and the listeners and the viewers did not hear. Of course, I have introduced Prince Manene Tabane, who has just spoken now, that he is the provincial chairperson of Cllr. I also introduced Miss Razia Mohammed from Muslim Life Coach, who is representing the Life Coach studio of Muslim. I also introduced Gabriela Faber, who is the Jewish student activist. So I'm told that when I was introducing them, I got cut off. My apologies to our panelists. Welcome once more. You are very, very important. Maybe let me go to the next, ask the next panelist, straight to Gabi or Gabi. Please correct me if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. I think if I say Gabriela, it's much better. If my question to you is, what is religion? If you could just explain the difference between faith and religion, And why is it important that we continue to practice religion today?
I think, in my opinion, from a Jewish perspective, that religion and faith are intertwined. And it's important that they aren't separated, because it is religion that allows us to have faith. And in times where there truly are so many struggles in life, I think religion can serve as comfort and a place where we are able to have faith in a brighter future, as religion is often comes from such a history, and it allows us to see where we came from in order to see where we're going. And it is that religion that gives us faith in ourselves, faith in our communities, and essentially faith in the rest of the world.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I like the explanation of your religion to say, as a nation, it is important to know where we come from in order for us to chart a way forward. Maybe on that note, let me do a follow-up question on you to say, how does then religion contribute to our moral fiber? Because you spoke about it serving as a comfort. So how does it then contribute into our moral fiber as a society?
Growing up in the Jewish community, I was given the parable that when God created the world, he used a blueprint. And this blueprint was religion. And I think sometimes we can feel so lost, and life is constantly made up of different choices that bring us to who we are, what experiences we are placed within. And it's always about the choice. Do I want to turn left or do I want to turn right? And in my opinion, religion is that guiding force to show us where to go and how to get there. And bringing it back to our idea of gender equality, I think it is very important that we have also control in directing where our religion goes, that we understand that it is the guidelines come from a divine source, but it is important to direct that divinity in a way that can better our society, that can progress our society, and that we can move forward but not losing our identity and our morals and who we are. Madam Speaker, you are muted.
Yes. Yeah. Colleagues, just apologize on behalf of Madam Speaker. We just have a very bad bandwidth on our side. Perhaps, Doc, if you can assist while I'm trying to come up with Plan B, just to carry the conversation through, and maybe we can get to other speakers as well to continue and answer the question in the meantime, while I make a Plan B, if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah. maybe we should move on to Arti Pandey to answer the same question that was asked from Gabriela.
Yes, thank you, Doc.
So just to repeat, the question is about religion contributing to moral fiber of society and whether or not it's still relevant in our society today. That's the question.
Yes.
Dr. Nyati. Okay, great.
Yes, religion, faith,
Yeah.
and contribution to moral,
yes.
regeneration, and also issues, of gender. I'll call it. I'm not going to call it parity in contemporary South Africa.
Yeah. Okay, so the role of religion and faith, or what is the difference between religion and faith? I would say religion is the more structured, generic, broader set of beliefs that bind a group of people together with some kind of common thread. But faith is more linked to the personal aspect of how one expresses that religion. Now, all religions have a basis that has ethical codes and moral codes and have systems of how it envisages a society in harmony. And from that point of view, if you go back to the basics, if you take away all of the aspects that we've built in over the centuries from the time that our religions have begun to now, the fundamental essence of it is for us to live in a cooperative and harmonious manner on this planet. So from that point of view, the value of religion towards moral regeneration and the moral fiber of society, it is absolutely essential to capitalize on those fundamental beliefs. The faith aspect comes into the individual's expression of that. There might be different facets of religion that appeal to you based on your personality. And those are the aspects that you bring into society. So not everybody brings in the same essence into society. In terms of gender equality, when our religious and cultural practices started centuries ago, there was a particular society in play. Society was at a particular level of evolution. And some of the norms and rules that were set in place were appropriate for those times. But that is not to say that we cannot adapt those to still have their essence, where we still have a society that is living in cooperation and harmony with themselves. If I could add one last point here, I am an engineer actually. And so I have a different view to this because we're living in a very technological advanced society today. Technology is at its peak. We've put man on the moon. We've sent rovers to Mars, for instance. But there's something beyond that. There's something that grounds us as a people of this world. It's our beliefs, it's our morals, it's our ethics, it's who we are. And these achievements would not be possible without that common sense of grounding which religion brings to all of us, whichever religion you're from. So I'll end my answer at that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Arti. Maybe once you are still on the platform, before you leave the platform, let me do a follow-up and talk on cultural practices. We've heard Prince Tabane explaining culture, the difference between culture and so what I would like to know from you is that, do you believe that there are cultural practices that we need to begin to do away with as a nation, or we should keep all the cultural practices?
Okay, thank you. There are certainly cultural practices that we need to relook at, even in my own community and in South Africa as a country. There are practices that are indeed oppressive towards females, for instance, males oppressing females, or views that are oppressive towards children, where the elders may be oppressive towards children or children towards elders. So there definitely is a need to relook at this. I mean, I could speak, highlight a few things from my own cultural practices. The way in which we have widows are treated. This is a well-known practice in Hindu culture. Is widows generally wear white traditional garments after, they're expected to do this obviously immediately after the death of their husbands. And there are particular rituals and customs, ceremonies that take place. So we need to go back and examine whether these practices are actually relevant in today's society. In a time where women were not generally remarrying, perhaps it was appropriate, perhaps it wasn't appropriate, but is it appropriate today? And these are the kinds of things that we could start looking at. So I don't want to speak about the cultural practices of another religion, but I mean, for myself, for instance, the widows, there is a taboo around menstruation. I think this is one that's common to quite a few cultures. Is it really practical in today's day and age to have a taboo around menstruation? Can one practically seal oneself up in a room and not leave home? Well, we've been on a hard lockdown under COVID now. But if you have to function in society and you have a family and you need to actually put a loaf of bread on the table for your family, if you're a breadwinner and you're a female, there's no way you can actually go and isolate yourself in a room. And we need to relook at these practices in light of where we are today practically as a society. I'll end with those two, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Arti. Maybe to remind our viewers that we're having different beliefs discussions today, and it is important because some of us, you only know about your belief or your culture, and today we are having different. So Arti is representing the Hindu community, so that is why she kept on saying on my belief. Maybe let me go to Rastafarian faith now. Let me go to Miss Khumalo. Having heard about the cultural practices as well, especially in the African and Asian traditions, I just want to know if these practices, on your belief, are still relevant in our world today. If you could just give us the evolution of societies as well. But as I said, you are not confined to my question. You can just give us more information on that. Thank you very much. Over to you, Sis Busi. Ms. Khumalo.
Good afternoon. Okay, with me from being the Rastafari community is that culture has always embraced and empowered women. It's the tradition that we had women like Queen Sharon who led nations, and balancing culture will be on going backwards to our roots and our culture. Our identity is on a crucial stand, documenting and teaching our youth, especially young girls and boys, the importance, the role of our culture to bring a better Africa for us. And religion and traditions are the source of women being oppressed and don't have inequality. So I will end there.
Thank you very much, and also thank you very much for raising the aspect of inequality and the issue of raising boys and girls. Thank you very much. Let me go to Pastor Hololo. Pastor Hololo, would you say culture or religion can be oppressive towards women? Or what is the impact of culture on women? And I am asking this particularly on you because I would also request you to talk on your experience as a Christian widow and the expectation that your faith had on you as a woman and as a widow. If you can just take us through that brief journey.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker and everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. You know, I had the discussion with many people on the issue of culture, of which culture of hasn't MB. The only problem is that sometimes the way we practice culture, we end up misrepresenting where it comes from. Because remember, as human beings, we coming from somewhere and we are somewhere and we are going somewhere. Now, let me talk about let's say where I grew up. I grew up from the villages where culture was a Metswana by birth. Culture was practiced very deep. And I came into Joburg where you find people somehow, sometimes I feel people are very confused. They buy or they learn from others and they start practicing something. Could tolerate somebody in between. You are a Christian and at the same time you're saying you are practicing a certain religion or a tradition or a culture. And sometimes we end up oppressing ourselves. Let me talk about women. We because of confusion on, like when that earlier on Contralisa Acho, where we coming from in terms of culture. Because sometimes we oppress ourselves because people say, if you do this, you're going to end up, the implications are going to be like this. So sometimes we don't get into the culture that is oppressive because we want to be. It's because we have been, like you get scared, if I'm not doing it, this is what is going to happen. Now, when I said I grew up in the villages, then I'll get to the point that you have asked, Madam Speaker. When I was still young, in our village, there were no mortuaries. This is how I interpreted the whole process, because before you practice something, you need to have an understanding where this thing is coming from. You don't need to just jump into things when somebody just tell you and you don't have reason why you are doing it. So this is how I interpreted some of the cultures that are being practiced and that are being oppressive. In my village, there was no mortuary then. So the old women will sit on the ground when somebody has passed on, because they had to use like a mud to cover the dead body because there were no eyes. So they will sit at the level of that of the body, the corpse. Now come to us, like nobody has ever explained to me. When somebody has passed on, people start putting the mattress on the floor. And then you are being forced, like I was forced to sit on the mattress and put the mattress on the floor. And then I refused. Because for me, that's how I interpreted it. Like when I grew up, reason why the old people are sitting, it was at the level of the dead body or the corpse. Not that I needed to sit on there. Like nobody has ever explained to me that reason when somebody has passed on, why should people babe matrasi mofat? And again, I came to Soweto because I was staying in Meadowlands and we had very small house there. Because there was no space for people when they come and battle. Then that's what I thought. They had told baby matrasi mofat gore ba khone kaofela ba fite mofat. Mena, that's how I interpreted the whole process of mourning. Now, because nobody has ever explained to them why all these things are happening, they end up wanting to oppress us, especially women. Because for me, I have seen my dad, after my mother has passed on, my dad has never sat on the mattress. My dad the whole time, and he was in and outside. And then sometimes you find women be forced to sit down there, matrasing. She's not supposed to look at people, whether it's hot or cold. You know, he can't move, he can't do anything. And it is unfortunate, like somebody said earlier on, life here mover. Now, you, a woman, you are the one that's supposed to go and sign out the policies and everything. But the people here, they want you to sit on the mattress, they want to oppress you, they want to. So all these things, I'm not saying we need to do away with. We need to get a way of handling this morning. Like myself, as Madam Speaker was saying, day one after I lost my husband, I made an announcement to the family. I said, because I've got enough house where I can sit and I can accommodate people. So, because I didn't understand the reason why it's matrasing, and people are not happy with me. Obviously, it caused the conflict between myself and the family and all other people, because people were looking at me as like, is this person happy because the husband has passed on? But for me, it was like, when my husband was alive, we had our own culture. Because remember, every family, it is its own clan. The head of the family in that family must decide how are you going to live. Then you create your own culture. And myself and my husband, we had created our own culture. And we practiced it before he passed on. So when he passed on, I didn't have to struggle because I already knew what was expected of myself. So even on the day of the funeral, you know, for me it was like, as a Christian, I know where this man has gone. So, you know, we mourn differently. I didn't have to be pushed like to you know, people were like, why are you talking at the funeral? You know, it was my right. And I refused anybody to push me to do what was not going to make me happy. So I think I'll reserve some of the comments. So for me is, I think as human beings, let us not also oppress ourselves. Before you try and say, I am doing this culture or tradition or whatever, know where it's coming from and know the reason. Because our forefathers had reasons why they were doing that. So as long as you know the reason, then do it. Don't allow yourself to be oppressed. Like issue where you'll be told that if you didn't drink the concoction, you'll get mad. Okay. I'm still alive. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker, I think you must give other speakers an opportunity to talk so that we can have diversity of opinions, please.
Yes, yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Doc. I was still listening. I just want to remind our viewers that we are celebrating Heritage Month. We are talking about our customs. We are talking about traditions, our beliefs, our culture. As you have heard from Pastor Hololo now, talking about the beliefs. So let me go to, without waste of time, go to Razia Mohammed. Razia, I must say that I am not very familiar with Islam practices. Can you take us through Islam and its relationship with women? What I can say is that I know that women cover their whole bodies, but men do not. I am interested in this particular practice, and I'm sure that viewers are also interested. Can you also please educate us on what this practice signifies?
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for this wonderful opportunity. It's an honor to speak here today. On the subject of what Islam is, so the fundamental core of Islam is that you believe in one God and you believe that Muhammad is his messenger. And that is the practices that you move by and large. So to answer your question, Madam Speaker, about women covering their bodies and men not having to cover their bodies. It is a practice whereby women are seen as gems. So it comes to mind of a very wonderful story that I heard the other day, where it said that there is a wrapped sweet and there is an unwrapped sweet. So what happens when there's a wrapped sweet is that it's protected, it's covered. When it's unwrapped, it's susceptible to all sorts of insects, ants, whatever it may be that would go onto the sweet. So that is an analogy that I would use of why women are required to cover their bodies, if that makes sense. Also, there is a fundamental difference between religion and spirituality. So religion are the rituals that we follow in order to ascertain our connection, our God connection. But we should be mindful that it should not just be rituals, but it should be a God connection. And that's where spirituality comes in. So spirituality is the sense that you know that there is a higher power, there is a higher being, there is a being that is directing you to live in this world cohesively and in harmony with all other individuals, and to respect each other's religions, to accept each other's cultures, and accept each other's equality, I would say, as such. And what has happened over the years, my opinion, is that Islam is a good religion. Islam is a perfect religion. It shows the wonderful nature of woman in a positive light, in a lovely, beautiful light. But what has happened over time is tradition has taken over. And what has happened over time is Asian tradition has taken over, where they have put women down. And that, I would say, is equivalent to gender-based violence, because women are seen as second-class citizens. Women are seen, whereas that is wrong, because the first woman in Islam was today's equivalent of a CEO. And that was the wife of our Prophet Muhammad. So women are basically should be allowed to have a voice. Women should be allowed to prosper. Women should be allowed to be able to have a place in society. All of those things. But it's tradition, that not religion. Tradition have culture, have put women down and made women think that their space is at home and they should not have a voice within society. And what is happening through time is that the beliefs, the morals, the ethics, the respect of women have now been elevated because they are now entering the workspace. They are now entering the public domain. Whether be it covered or not covered, that is your personal choice. But now it's such where culture and religion are now not one and the same. And that, I would say, is the technological progression of society at large. So my personal opinion is that when we separate religion from culture that we adopt from other areas in the world, then we know that we are winning. Then we know that our God connection and our spiritual connection is on point. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Wow, very important. How do we embrace each other's belief? We have different beliefs, but we have to unite in our diversity as a society. We must embrace the fact that we are diverse, but what is important is to unite and embrace each other's diversity and also respect women. So maybe before we go any further, let me allow Sipho to take us through the comments so that we can hear what are our viewers saying. on this topic. This is a very important topic.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much to everybody who's made such very interesting, insightful presentations for us to learn more about each other. On social media, just a few comments. People appreciating the comments. I think the first one that I want to mention here is a birthday wish from Councillor Mashao, who says, "Happy birthday, Dr. Nyati, may God give you more." And then Francis Walker says he's watching all the way from Ghana. And Bulelwa says, "Happy Heritage Day in advance. It's a pity that one has arrived late to listen to the panelists. One has arrived where one of the panelists, a Jewish origin, speaking on religion history. Indeed, religion is intertwined with culture, values, norms, morals, including ethics. Religion plays a role in molding up society and communities. Most religions have common policies and identical values. For example, respect, humanity, etc. are all common elements in religion." And then Francis, okay, there was another comment from people watching all the way from Ireland as well, saying Malibongwe. So that's it from my side, Madam Speaker. Madam, there is also comments on the chat itself. Would you like me to read those, or will you read those, Madam?
All right, Sipo. I think let's move on. There is a hand from Vivian. Maybe let's hear what Vivian has to say.
Okay.
Can she unmute herself?
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody, and our host, our distinguished guests. I just wanted to mention something about gender equality versus tradition versus religion. Our faiths that we are focusing on at the moment, in this particular instance, the Hindu faith is excluded. I'm speaking about the Abrahamic faiths, the Jewish, the Christian, and the Muslim. Our faiths are patriarchal in its design. Historically, it's the way it has been designed. We have been, I don't mean this to come across negatively, it just happens to be a reality. We were led by Moses, the Jewish faith, by the Prophet Muhammad. We respect him and peace be upon him. And of Father, God, and we've got Trinity, Jesus Christ, who's our Savior, and the Spirit. And I think when we are really truthful with ourselves, we've got to realize that the church has been dominated by men previously, historically speaking. I think through the ages, and certainly in the 21st century, we've become a lot more liberated in our outlook. Women are becoming priests, pastors, etc. But previously, and still amongst our existing religions, there is a lot of exclusion with women. Women still are looked upon as second-class citizens. And I find that the question around religion is also something that bothers me, in that religion can go very wrong sometimes because it's dogmatic in its design as well. Faith is really, I wouldn't say the one is better over the other. I think when you have faith, I'm not necessarily very religious, but I have very deep faith, which ties in with spirituality. I think our cultural differences has also played a major part in the conflict that religion raises, that we live with. But that pretty much is what I wanted to say. I believe that I grew up as a Catholic. I mean, in our church, you all know the situations around Catholicism and how men are revered. And I have a problem with that. The moment we start judging the one against the other, religion versus spirituality versus culture, there's conflict. I think if we can just respect the fact that we do worship and believe in different ways, and we all believe that we've got the answer. We all believe that we're following the perfect path. Thank you. That's my point.
Thank you very much, and Viv. Thank you very much, Vivian. Sorry, when I was introducing the guest, I did not introduce you. You are also one of our old friends in Johannesburg.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes. Maybe let's hear from Riva. Riva, what is your take on this topic?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for including me. It's very kind of you. Look, there is no doubt that I believe that all religions, that includes the African traditional religions, the healers, our great African heritage, as a previous speaker said, they are all based on the same principle of respect for each other, respect for elders, and a quest for peace. That is common throughout all religions, including our African tradition. However, as this speaker, Vivian, has just said, in every religion, it doesn't matter which one, the majority of people do request and follow a path of peace, of respect. However, the extremists in every religion interpret their particular religion or ideology in a very nationalistic way, in a very personal way, and in a very power-hungry way. This is as old as the hills, but the vast majority of believers respect. As regards the tradition of men and women, yes, all tradition does come also to play in light of the era in which it was first born or realized. And of course, 5,000 years ago, talking about the Abrahamic religion, of course, men were more dominant. Then it was a totally different culture. However, I believe, again, all those three religions of the Abrahamic culture, while still tending to be conservative and practice and have mainly men at the fore, all three are changing today. And although the rituals may still involve more men as opposed to women, they still are much more amenable to hearing a woman's voice, maybe in an educational sphere that was never heard before. In all the religions, you also have people who are running ahead. As in progressive or Reform Judaism, you've had women taking the lead in rabbinical issues. But even in modern Orthodox Judaism, you hear women's voices many times, even if it is as the rabbi's wife, a rebbitzin, or as an educator, and now they also going forward, they still keep a woman advising women. So all the three religions, because the majority today are going to demand equality and dignity, are moving in the right direction. Some may be faster than others, and maybe some will remain in the elements they have now. What is terribly important, besides how we practice in terms of rituals, whether it's a man or a woman, is how we treat each other. And that is the most important thing, that irrespective of the beliefs and their expressions, and in terms of men and women being equal in all parts, as I personally believe should be the case, but I believe in it coming gradually with people asking for it. But what is much more important is, how do the men in a particular religion treat the woman culturally? Because as we've heard, the religion is expressed in the very culture. So I like to think, and I'll conclude with this, that in South Africa, our magnificent country, with our miraculous evolution, the only kind in the world, where instead, as Nelson Mandela said, instead of vengeance and hatred, they chose reconciliation and nation building. And recently I was privileged to take part as a listener in an international discussion between the three Abrahamic religions. And they believe that it is that between all religions, the Abrahamic, Hindu, all the others, that it is the religious people who have to preach this message of tolerance, love for each other, both within their own religion and between the religions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Riva. As I'm going to hand over to Doc for a comment, I must say that this debate leaves me with three questions. One question being, after having heard all these discussions and all these comments from our panelists, how do we as a society make sure that we attain equitable society? How do we make sure that we attain equitable society? That is my first question. My second question would be, how do we make sure that all these religious practices we have spoken about do respect the rights of women? You know, the relationship between these practices and women. And the last question, as Doc is going to be taking a platform, would be whether these practices still remain relevant or they are in the interest of women. But we've heard that some of them, they are still old practices, which are not necessarily, I think it was Vivian who indicated that some of the faith or the religious practices or cultures are still very patriarchal. So how do we then, as a society, making sure that these practices, as we practice them, do serve the interest of women and we do away with patriarchy? Let me hand over to Doc. Doc, your comments. I know it's your birthday today, but I think this is a very important topic as well. Thank you for you.
No, thank you, Speaker. I think for me, I think what is not coming through is actually the question that you've asked at the end. We've tended to hear people talking more about their religions, but the part about, you know, are the practices at a point where they may need to be relooked in the light of the role of women today. So I don't want to spend time on this. I would rather give the speakers a chance to opine, you know, from their various point of view.
May I?
Thank you very much, Doc. Maybe as I will be requesting comment from all the panelists, let me single out Prince Tabani. And maybe to be very specific, to say, Prince Tabani, there are some indigenous cultures that require young women to go for virginity tests, but young males do not do so. So I would really request you to comment on this as we are trying to find each other as a society, and also to respond on the question that was emphasized by Dr. Nyat.
Thanks, Speaker. Yes, though I would have loved to touch the issue of Dr. Nyati to say, how do we then currently talk about the relevance of cultural practice nowadays, if I've heard him correctly? but I would have loved to have a bite on that. But nonetheless, as you have indicated, the issue of a girl child virginity, is that correct? Versus young boys who have not gone through. Look, Speaker, even in our own diversity, when we practice culture, customs, and tradition, we'll always differ because of the environment. The environment, we're a product of the environment. By environment, I mean what surrounds us will then dictate terms of how are we supposed to live in the society. Therefore, if you talk about that, if you go up north at the tender age, boys will go to the initiation schools. And the same age as the girls will go to the virginity inspection in that fashion. But the other concern that I have is this thing of trying to explain our culture in a foreign language. I think that's where the problem also chips in. We'll end up losing the content of what we know in our language to explain our own culture. Once we start to there's a question regarding the issue of ukuhlolwa kwentombi. One will say virginity testing, and we may differ because we don't want to hear that, because we are saying ukuhlolwa, we are not testing girls here. There's nothing that we use to test, we just do ukuhlolwa kwentombi. Therefore, also the issue of the language becomes a problem here. I wanted to pass on that. But then in terms of girls being done ukuhlolwa and the girls at that age, it's the same. It's only when you go to other provinces or in other tribes, ethnic groupings, that they will do at a later stage. But in Limpopo, the vendors, the Bedis, and the Tongas, they will do that at tender age. And they've got cultural reasons for them to do that. That is why I would say there would be no difference. It only depends at a certain area, how and when you go to embark on that custom or in that cultural practice. So I wouldn't say there would be an issue on that. Because I've heard that zooming into the issue of patriarch, that even nowadays will always refer to the issue of the patriarch. One may not deny that. But the point is, before we can comment about cultural practices, it is also critical to know the purpose, the origin of a custom or a tradition. One speaker has alluded to that effect. I would make an example, Speaker. Why would then say women should mourn, ukuzila, uyilakasutu, in a way that they should wear something that will show everybody that my husband has passed on? As I've said, the practices and our customs have a purpose, which I believe the purpose of them is to bring the positive spin-offs and in a way of molding us to become better persons in the society, promoting a moral regeneration. But if you look at a typical example of the culture of Ubuzila, why are we wearing black clothes or in different colors these days? When you go back, you'll find that it was during that time of the Fakane Wars, when white people were taking our own people because of the land issue. The missionaries came from that angle because they came with a way of saying, we're saving the situation. They would want to identify women who have lost their husbands during the war. And then in a way, they would want to support them and give them food and whatever kind of help. But they would want to differentiate between those who have husbands to support them and those who do not have husbands who have passed on because of the war. They would then say they must wear something because we didn't have clothes by then. Now they came with these cloths, black clothes to them, so that they are able to identify them when they're going to assist them with food and whatever. But as the year goes by, generation to generation, it became a custom, a culture, a tradition that we needed to practice. Now, it became a problem that we cannot dissociate ourselves from that, because the belief would be, if you don't wear this sign, this cloth as a sign of saying you are mourning, you may be cursed. It's something that, as I believe, critical to what we are bringing us to this debate. I believe it's educational in the process, so that we understand our culture, rather than to have people who will then always attack our cultural practice. I fully agree that culture is not static. It moves with time. Therefore, we would need to adjust to that angle. So cruel, the culture that we didn't know where it came from, like what I've mentioned now. You'd find women, when they go to town, in a taxi, someone would then say, a woman must sit at the back, because if you are mourning, wearing something, you're staying in the front, that's going to be a case. It's an oppression on its own. That has to change, because culture has to move with time. But we need not to lose the essence of who we are, because culture will then, in a way, bring positive spin-offs. That's what point I wanted to come in. Thank you.
Okay. Speaker?
Thank you very much.
Speaker,
Yes, Doc.
Gabriela has been trying to, say something. I don't know if you can, but if you can limit the time that people take, in giving their opinions, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Gabriela, let's hear from you. Thank you very much, Prince Tabane. Gabriela, can you just briefly address us?
Thank you, Speaker.
Sorry, I'm unable to see hands.
Thank you, Speaker. I'll be commenting on your 3 questions that you presented about so basically in the when it was one of the religious holidays, I read and sang the book of Esther, which is one of our traditions. And previously, this was very much frowned upon, and women weren't given the opportunity to read this book of a woman leader. And I think one of the things that this shows is that times are changing. And it's important to, when we trying to make sure that our religions and cultures are gender friendly, we need to also be careful that we don't destroy the religious identity which we are coming from and the cultural identity. Propose as a solution is that we don't change the laws of our cultures and religion, but rather we change the norms. You see, we were previously, as other speakers had brought up, we were in a society where men were controlling the religions by mere fact that they were had the privilege of getting greater education than women. They were the ones that could read, they were the ones that could write. And so they were the ones commenting on our, whether it be a Bible or the Quran or the Torah, they were the ones that were making these commentaries and drawing the conclusions from the divine source. And women were left out of this. But in Judaism, when Moses was given the Torah, our religious Bible, God said, first go and tell the women about about the Torah, and then go and tell the men. And for so many years, the woman's voice was not heard within the religious sphere. But now it is time, times have changed, and it is time that the woman's voice comes back and starts directing and engaging in these discussions. And so it is essential, in my opinion, that women start raising up to religious positions and leadership so that they can be the ones also directing our religious and cultural communities. And so that we can bring light. One of the religious practices that women do in Judaism is just before we bring in the Sabbath, women light candles. And what this practice represents is that women, God has tasked Jewish women to bring light into the darkness. And often we are finding ourselves in times of darkness. And we need us women as leaders to heed the call that society and communities are calling out to us. And we need redemption, whereby women have equal participation in the religion, equal participation in the culture, equal participation and respect in society. And it is us women who need to be directing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabby. I am going now to allow each and every panelist just 2 minutes. We are wrapping up now because we are going towards the end of our discussion. However, I would want us to pursue and have more discussions on this topic, Doc. You know, especially on what Prince Tabane has raised, the issue of mourning for women, the different ways of mourning, and the education that he spoke about. I think there's a need for us to educate our communities about our different customs and our different beliefs. And particularly when it comes to the issue that you have raised, Prince Tabane, I think of Uguzila. And I like the way you have taken us through the background as to how did it come about. So we have spoken about how these customs and these beliefs came about. So I think now in 2 minutes, I'm going to allow each and every panelist to talk about the future of culture and religion and its relationship with women as we strive to achieve gender equality as a society. What is the future? We have heard about where do all this originate, but what is the future of culture and religion as we are trying to achieve gender equality? Gabby has spoken very well to say that before it was only men who were privileged. Now privileges are there for women as well. So what is the future of culture and religion? So let's talk about the future. Let me start with Razia Mohammed. If you could just spend not more than 2 minutes on that as we wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So going forward, me being a coach as well as a Muslim woman, I interact with people of many faiths, of different faiths. And my take on the future of culture and religion would be integration. So it's about moving forward as a country, as a society, as a community, as the earth, as the universe, whatever we may call it. But it's about accepting each other's differences instead of looking for common ground. And when we accept that we are as different as we are, so are we the same, then women of all faiths will unite, and women of all faiths will come together and look for solutions in terms of collaboration. So in terms of educating our younger counterparts in order to progress progressively and productively, and to leave culture and tradition and all of those practices behind, and to move forward technologically, but also in forms of mutual respect, mutual admiration, mutual honoring, all of those things. So it's about finding that common space that we can attain within society and working together in order to progress community. That would be my first and foremost solution in order for women to go forward in society. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Razia. Integration, educating the younger generation, working together. Thank you very much. Let's hear from Arti Pandey. Let's hear from you.
Thank you. So in order to move to the future, I would say one needs to go back to the roots. And I want to use this as an analogy for the story in terms of Hinduism. So in Hinduism, we actually worship the female form. God is actually feminine in Hinduism. So you can have God the Father or God as Mother. And our calendar of religious events throughout the year includes quite a number of festivals dedicated to celebrating the divine feminine. And yet, even though we recognize the divine feminine as God, as divinity, we have still allowed ourselves to become a patriarchal society. So we've forgotten those fundamental roots. specifically in our culture or religion, woman represents power. Woman is the female presides over knowledge, for instance. So it's not enough that we only pay respect in the temple when we're praying to God as a female, but then we don't show respect to our mothers or our sisters or our fellow female co-workers or any woman that you come across on a normal day. So we can't move to the future without going back to those roots. And those particular cultural practices which entrench in my community I'm speaking about, which entrench the divinity of the divine as feminine, need to be emphasized more, and not just from a ritualistic point of view. There needs to be awareness in terms of how do you practically bring that into your life, make that religion a living life for you in terms of respecting women in general and getting rid of these oppressive behaviors that we've imposed. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Going back to our roots as a society. Let's hear from Pastor Khololo. Pastor Khololo, future.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to say culture is one thing that religion is one thing that we cannot do away with. The only thing that needs to happen is that we respect each other, especially in a marriage, because that's where patriarchy many times is being practiced, and then from there it overflows outside. In a marriage, we expect the culture of oneness and transparency. That is the first thing, because that's where everything starts in a home for us to have. And then we also, as African people, what dominate a lot in terms of culture, religion, and customs, it's, as I mentioned, is respect of each other. Again, as myself as a Christian, what I base myself on is my partnership with God. I need to imitate what God is and what Christ is, because God is love, and I need to base everything that I do on the love of God, because culture obviously is an unspoken rules. So what we need to practice is what God commands us to do, because as Christians, the Bible says we are in this world, but we are not of this world. So anything that we are doing, we need to imitate what God expects us to do. So that's what I can say at this point in time. But Madam Speaker, like we say, may we have this topic, because it's very difficult just to cut ourselves short when we want to talk about this culture thing. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much, Pastor Khololo. Respect, love of God. Let's go to Miss Khumalo. Miss Khumalo.
Thank you, Speaker. With my, I'm
No,
here.
your 2 minutes, please. 2 minutes wrap up.
Okay. What?
Yes.
It's driven by and common goals, as other is women. We must recognize each apologetic about it if we truly forward. And what I can close off is that us as women, we should not forget that we are goddess. You know, we bring life to this earth. So it's up to us as collective, as different cultures, to go forward in unity, that we bring life to earth. We are Mother Nature. As much as when we get rain, we say that Mother Nature has poured. So we need to pour each other's strength for us to go on as in unity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go forward in unity. United we stand. Thank you very much. Let me go to Gabby. Gabby, your 2 minutes, please.
I think going forward it's with religion, it's important and culture to evolve, and to go through a process of evolution, not revolution. Because if we change and make our progress in a revolution way, we are going to lose our identity and pass away too much history of who we are and where we come from. But if we do it with evolution and we change the small things and make small changes on a continuous basis, and these changes to be guided by women religious leadership who are able to accept and respect and appreciate where we're coming from, then we are able to look forward to see where we are going and use religion and the perspective of the feminine to guide us, to redeem and bring light into our religions, communities, and the world at large.
Thank you very much, Gabby. May I request the person who has not muted to please mute? We are almost there. Changes with time. Thank you very much. We must adjust as we go forward. Thank you very much, Gabby. Prince, may I give you your 2 minutes? 2 minutes. I'm going to count. Your 2 minutes wrap up, please, Prince. Is Prince Tabane still around?
I'm just checking for him, madam.
Hello?
It looks like he's kicked out, Madam Speaker.
He's kicked out. All right. Let me give Doc before we hand over to the chairperson of service delivery EISD to do closing vote of thanks remarks for us. Your last comments, please, as a co-host and anchor and our partner. Dr. Anyati, are you there?
Madam, I think he's also, I think he's kicked out. I don't see him.
Yeah, he is.
Doc is also kicked out.
He's kicked out, madam, yeah.
All right, we actually running out of time. I saw comments from Riva and from Vivian, and thank you very much for joining us. Without waste of time, we're supposed to wrap up at 1:30. We are now 3 minutes behind time. May I allow Councillor Matsidiso Mfikwe to do vote of thanks and thank our panelists and our viewers and everybody for this important topic, which needs to be continued next time.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon or good evening to all the panelists. Indeed, a very emotive and where we learned a lot about the impact of culture and religion on the struggles for women. I do agree that there is a need to have another session. I saw somebody wrote that we actually need a conference. You know, I'm sure Zoom does not really help us, you know, but we need to discuss this with an open mind on its impact on women development amid the women's struggles. You know, we have seen in some cultures that culture has been used as one arbiter to oppress women. So we do need engagement going further. But let me thank, Madam Speaker, you for convening us as usual. These are always eye-opening and educational sessions that you always host. Thank very much all our panelists. The insight, the knowledge of the issues that they were talking about is really empowering, and we do appreciate the lessons that we're getting out of those presentations that they made. And thank the viewers, the contributors, including everybody that tuned in and logged in through Zoom itself, as well as our most important participants on Facebook, who are loyal participants, who are always there supporting and guiding the activities, including through their comments on the topics that you always present, Madam Speaker. Also appreciate your technical team, Sipho Ntlaka and Doc, the birthday boy. I hope he's not running away to celebrate his birthday. As Sipho is saying that the team kicked him out. You know, I don't believe it. I think he was just getting late for his birthday, so he had to just say the technology kicked him up, and wishing him all the best and many more beautiful years added onto his life. Everybody that participates, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We really appreciate the platform, and hoping that as we learn, all of us do indeed learn on all the topics that we seek to discuss here as we take forward the society that we're leading, taking forward and ensuring that we do understand what is it that we need to deal with. Thank you very much. You are all appreciated. Our panelists, even tomorrow when we call you, please raise up your hands like you did now, because you are educators, you know, in the topics that you give or whatever task that the speaker asks you to do. You have educated not just us, but all the people that had tuned in. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nfikwe. Thank you very much to all of you, our panelists and our viewers. I couldn't agree with you more, Councillor Nfikwe. These are very important topics. Thank you so much. Please enjoy the rest of your day. To Dr. Nyati, please enjoy the rest of your birthday. We appreciate that even on your birthday, you committed to educating the society. Together, we can educate our society and educate each other. We can learn from each other. We can learn different cultures. Thank you very much. Please have a good evening.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, and my love to all from Reba.
Thank
Bye.
you. We love you all. We love you all.
Vivian, how are you?
Long time, Vivian.
Is she gone? She's gone.